The screams cut through the air like shattered glass. It was supposed to be just another sunny afternoon by the river, a peaceful picnic on the edge of the wild. But nothing would ever be the same after that moment. Two tiny hands reached for the sky, struggling against the current, as if begging the world not to forget them. And then something happened no one could have predicted. At that exact moment, while the panicked cries of a mother echoed through the trees, a shape emerged from the tall grass. Not a person, not a lifeguard, not even another parent. It was a lion, wild, massive, golden, and it was sprinting toward the river with terrifying speed. You wouldn't believe what happened next. Earlier that day, the Wilson family had driven out to the Wilderness Reserve, a hidden gem outside the town, known for its clear water and scenic views. The parents, Michael and Emily, needed a break from city life. They brought along their 3 children, 11-year-old Lily and her 5-year-old twin brothers, Ben and Noah. The river sparkled under the afternoon sun. The air was warm and filled with the scent of fresh grass. Laughter rang out as the children played by the bank, supervised loosely by their parents who were laying out food and sipping cold drinks. It was all so perfect, until it wasn't. No one saw it happen. Not at first. One minute, the boys were playing near the edge, tossing stones and splashing each other. The next, there was a sudden scream. Then silence. Then chaos. Where are they? Emily's voice cracked with fear as she raced to the water. Lily stood frozen, pointing at the fast-moving current. They were right there. They were just right there. Michael dove in instantly, but the river had already pulled the boys beyond reach. The current wasn't wide, but it was deceptively strong, fed by underground springs and mountain runoff. Visibility was poor, and every second counted. Panic surged. The parents scrambled. Other picnickers joined the search, yelling, pointing, diving into the muddy water. Time stretched into slow-motion horror. And that's when the grass moved. At first, no one noticed it. It seemed impossible. A lion, fully grown, muscular, with a mane like fire, emerged from the brush. A wild animal, untamed, unchained. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People backed away in fear. Cameras were raised, children were pulled back. But the lion didn't look at them. It looked at the river. Then, without hesitation, it leapt. The splash was enormous. It disappeared beneath the surface, churning water in every direction. Screams erupted again, but not out of fear, this time out of disbelief. The lion dove deeper, vanishing beneath the surface as ripples radiated outward. Seconds felt like hours. And then movement. First came Ben, cradled by a giant paw. The boy was coughing, sputtering, his tiny chest rising and falling. The lion kicked powerfully against the current, swimming with the child balanced across its foreleg. It pushed toward the shore where Michael stood waist-deep, trembling. The lion reached him, and with a low rumble, not a growl, but almost like a sigh, it let the child slide into his father's arms. Ben was alive. But where was Noah? The lion turned back toward the river without pause, diving once more. Emily dropped to her knees, praying aloud. Please, please, not both. Not both. Everyone stood frozen. No one could look away. The trees themselves seemed to hold their breath. This time, the lion took longer to return. But when it did, Noah was there, limp, his head against the lion's shoulder. The beast swam slower now, as if exhaustion had begun to creep in. But it didn't stop. It didn't hesitate. And when it reached the bank, it placed the child down gently with a strange, almost fatherly care. Noah didn't move. Emily sobbed uncontrollably as she scooped him into her arms, pressing her ear to his chest. Seconds passed. Then a cough. A small one, then another. He was breathing. A cheer erupted, raw, relieved, disbelieving. And the lion? It didn't stay for applause. It stood tall for a moment, water dripping from its golden coat, eyes scanning the family. Then it turned, stepped back into the tall grass, and vanished into the wild it came from. People rushed forward, but no one dared follow. Michael dropped beside his wife, wrapping his arms around both boys. They're okay, he whispered. They're okay. The family was whole again. But none of them would ever forget what saved them. Some said it must have been a trained animal that escaped from a sanctuary. Others swore it was a guardian spirit. But one thing was clear. That lion had done something no human had managed. It had heard the cries, understood the danger, and acted. And while the Wilsons held their children close, one thought haunted them all. The world should have moved on after that day. The boys were alive. The family was safe. The picnic spot had turned into a miracle site, and people shared videos and pictures online with captions like, "Hero Lion Saves Twins," and "Guardian of the River." News crews showed up. Reporters swarmed the area. But for Michael and Emily Wilson, the cameras meant nothing. They were haunted by questions that had no answers. At night, Emily would wake up in cold sweats, the memory of Noah's still body in her arms playing over and over in her mind. Michael couldn't stop researching lions, trying to find any logical reason a wild predator would do something so human. Lily, the eldest, seemed to be the only one at peace. She started drawing pictures of the lion again and again. The mane, the golden eyes, the giant paws. She'd sketch it watching over their family from a distant hilltop or standing in front of their car like a protector. One night, she said quietly at dinner, "I think he wasn't just saving Ben and Noah. He was saving all of us." There was silence after that. But then strange things began to happen. 2 weeks after the incident, the family returned to the same river. Not for a picnic, but because Michael had been invited for a follow-up interview by a wildlife journalist. Rangers had scouted the area extensively since the rescue, trying to locate the lion. They found nothing. No tracks. No signs. No hair samples. Nothing. "It's like it came out of nowhere," one ranger said, "and vanished just the same." The family stood by the edge of the water. The current looked slower now, gentler. But Emily still kept her boys close, one hand always gripping the back of their shirts. Noah kept glancing at the trees. "Do you think he's watching us again?" he whispered. Michael chuckled nervously. "He's probably far away by now, buddy." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. That night, back at the lodge where the family was staying, something strange happened. They were sitting by the fire pit, roasting marshmallows, when they heard it. A low, rumbling sound, so soft it could have been mistaken for thunder. But it wasn't thunder. Emily stood slowly. The kids stopped moving. Even the lodge dogs perked up, ears alert. From the edge of the trees, a golden shimmer caught the light. There, half-shadowed by the branches, stood the lion. It didn't roar. It didn't approach. It just stood watching them. This time there was no fear. Only awe. Lily whispered, "I told you, he's still watching." They didn't move. No one did. The lion stood for almost a full minute, then turned and disappeared into the night once again. Michael tried to follow, but by the time he reached the tree line, there was nothing. Back home, things got even stranger. Videos of the rescue had gone viral, reaching millions within days. People debated online whether it was a miracle, a trained animal, or something spiritual. Wildlife experts were stumped. Animal behaviorists said lions don't act this way, not in the wild. But one email stood out. A professor from Kenya wrote to Michael, saying he had read about a similar legend passed down through generations of local tribes. A story about a guardian lion said to appear during moments of grave danger, especially when children were involved. Some thought it was myth. Others swore it was real. "I think you met the Simba wa Watoto," the professor wrote. The lion of the children. Michael didn't know what to believe. But he couldn't forget what he saw. The intelligence in the lion's eyes, the deliberate way it cradled his sons, the fact that it returned just to watch over them once more. Driven by the mystery, Michael made a decision. He would go back alone. He kissed Emily and the kids goodbye one morning and flew across the country to the nearest research post near the reserve. He carried with him nothing but a journal, a camera, and a single goal: to find the lion, or at least understand why it did what it did. He stayed in a tent by the river for days, speaking with locals, interviewing rangers, reviewing motion sensor camera footage from hidden spots around the area. And still nothing. Until one night, as the wind howled through the trees, he heard it again. That same deep, thunderous hum. He grabbed his flashlight and camera and moved toward the sound, heart pounding. Through the tall grass, through the heavy dark, he saw movement, faint but unmistakable. The lion was there. It stood still, staring directly at him. Michael froze. He raised his camera. Click. But then something unexpected. The lion began to walk toward him. Not quickly, not with aggression, but steadily, purposefully, like it had something to say. Michael's breath caught in his throat. Just a few yards apart now. Nothing between them. The lion sat. It looked at him. And then it did something that stopped Michael's heart. It raised its paw and gently touched the ground between them. Almost like it was pointing. Michael stepped closer. And that's when he saw it. Something buried in the dirt. Something unnatural. He knelt and brushed away the soil. What he found there would leave him speechless. and change everything he thought he knew. Michael's fingers trembled as he uncovered the object buried beneath the lion's paw print. At first, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. A small leather bracelet, mud-stained, weathered, and ancient. It looked handmade, with carved beads and a symbol etched into the center. He gently lifted it, brushing off the dirt. The lion watched him, its breath steady, eyes filled with something more than wild instinct. It felt aware. Michael held the bracelet up. "What is this?" he whispered, almost to himself. The lion stood again, turned away, and without another sound, disappeared back into the grass for the final time. Michael stayed there long after it vanished, staring at the spot. When he returned to the lodge and showed the bracelet to the local elder, the old man's eyes widened. "This," he said in a hushed voice, "is worn only by the guardians in our legends. Men who gave their lives to protect the innocent. When they die, their spirit passes to the lion, the Simba wa Watoto. You were chosen to see him. Few ever are." Michael didn't speak. He didn't need to. His heart felt heavier, but also whole. Back home, he kept the bracelet in a glass box on the fireplace mantel. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Months passed. The boys recovered fully, and the family slowly returned to normal life. But none of them ever forgot what happened by the river. The story became a part of their identity, something sacred they shared only with those who truly listened. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room for a movie night, Ben looked up at his father. "Daddy," he asked, "was the lion real or magic?" Michael smiled softly. He looked at his wife, then at Lily and Noah. "He was real," he said. "But sometimes real things are the most magical of all." And that night, before bed, Emily tucked the twins in and said, "You were saved for a reason. Never forget that." Years later, when the twins grew older and told their story in schools, podcasts, and even to their own children, they always ended it the same way. A lion didn't just save us, he taught us something. Because courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, watching, waiting, ready to do the right thing when no one else will. And sometimes the greatest heroes wear claws instead of capes. Moral of the story: true guardians can come in the most unexpected forms. Real courage is not about power, but about the heart to protect the innocent, even when no one is watching. Sometimes the wild teaches us what it truly means to be human.